So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do the fans stitch. This is a lovely one row repeated pattern that builds up to give you a nice lacy open work piece of fabric which would look lovely for scarves or for shawls, great for spring and summer. Hello, my name's Karen Stangram and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss a single stitch. So if you're keen to get going with this video, give me a thumbs up and let's do this. So in this tutorial I'm going to be using an Aran yarn. This is a Stylecraft special in lavender. So it's the Aran, not the double knit. I've chosen to use a 6.5mm crochet hook, the 6.5, just because I want to give my product a little bit more lace, a little bit more drape to it. And it's quite a chunky yarn to use an Aran on a spring garment, but I think you sort of get away with it if you're going to use the bigger crochet hook, and also the pattern will work up much quicker. Equally, I need to say that if you're using a bulkier yarn and a bulkier crochet hook, you may well end up using more yarn than you would if you were using a double knit and a smaller hook. So it's things to think about to make sure you have enough yarn for your project. I also have a pair of scissors to cut off my end and my needles to sew in my ends at the end. So I'm going to start off with a slip knot. You can do this in whichever way you prefer. And we're going to make a foundation chain. Now, our foundation chain needs to be made in multiples of 7 plus 4 extra for turning. So we go yarn over, pull through, and we make 1 chain, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you need to make your foundation chain in multiples of 7, and I will join you when you've completed your chains. So pause the video now. So I've done my foundation chain multiples of 7 up to 21. So I've done 3 repeats just for this sample piece. I'm now going to do the 4 extra chains we need. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to do our foundation row, or row 1 of the pattern. So there's row 1 and row 2. You only do row 1 once, and then we repeat row 2 to the end of the project so you have it the size that you want. So we are going to do a treble. That's UK terminology. In US terminology that would be a double crochet. We're going to do 1 treble in the 5th chain from the hook. So we don't count the one that's on the hook currently. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in that 5th chain I'm going to do a treble. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We're then going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're then going to miss the next 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're then going to do 4 trebles in the next chain. So all in the same chain that we have there. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this little section is the bit that's going to be repeated to the end. So chain 2, treble in the next chain, just 1 treble, chain 2, miss 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the next chain, 4 trebles. So that's 1, oops, 2 in the same chain space, or same chain, 3 and 4. So then we repeat that, so we chain 2, 1, 2, we treble in the next stitch, we chain 2, we skip 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the next stitch, which happens to be my last stitch, we're going to do our 4 trebles. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let me just repeat that for you. So it's chain 2, 1 treble in the next chain, chain 2, miss 5 chains, 4 trebles in the next chain all the way along. And that's how we do row 2, and your last 4 trebles should be in that last stitch. So for row 2 then we chain 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we turn our work, and at the bottom of that chain we're going to do our first treble. We're then going to chain 2, 1, 2, and that chain 2 is going to help us to travel over these trebles here and over this space here. We're going to be working into this 2 chain space next, and in that 2 chain space we're going to do 4 trebles. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to do 1 more treble in that chain space. We're then going to chain 2, we're going to skip the next chain space and we're going to work into this chain space with 4 trebles. 1, 2, 3 and 4, chain 2 and 1 more treble into the chain space. Chain 2. Skip all those trebles and this chain space. We're going to work into that last space. So if you haven't got as far as I am now, pause the video whilst you repeat the pattern along the row, and I'll meet you at the end. So we've come to the last repeat. We're going to skip these trebles, skip this chain space, and we're going to work 4 trebles in that last loop of chains at the end. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there we have our first row, and we've just done our second row, which is the one that we are repeating. So let's go over that second row again. So chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn your work. Treble in that first treble and chain 2. Travel over the trebles, over the chain gap, and into the next chain space. We're going to do 4 trebles. 1, 2, 3 and 4, chain 2 and another treble, all in the same chain space, chain 2, skip the trebles, skip a chain space, work in the next chain space with 4 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 2, do another treble in the same chain space, chain 2, skip the trebles, skip the gap, and in the last loop of chains we're going to do 4 trebles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So essentially the pattern's exactly the same until you get to the end and we don't do the chain 2 and the extra treble, we just finish on the 4 trebles. So I'm going to do a few more rows now just so you can see how it works up, and I will join you back here in a moment. So I've done a few more rows just for you to see how it works up, and actually with the 21 stitches that I did, this would be a nice sort of size for a summer scarf. So being a 1 row repeated pattern, it will be the same on the back as it is on the front. Really lovely lacy drape to this. They said I'm using an Aran for this, but I'm using a 6.5mm crochet hook, so that means you're going to get much more of a drape. So really lovely stitch, really quick to work up, and certainly one I think you should try for spring summer garments. So that's how to do the fans stitch. I really hope you found today's tutorial useful. If there are any information that you need to find out about this video, have a look in the descriptions below where I post all the links to any freebies and other videos I think you might find useful. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video, to give me a thumbs up below. Don't forget also to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more of my tutorial videos. There are 2 other videos on screen to help you on your crochet journey, and I will see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!